Hey guys, tonight we're stepping softly into the whispering pathways of ancient Persia, where garden breezes aren't accidental. They're intentionally designed masterpieces. Imagine yourself wandering leisurely beneath tall cypress trees, your fingers brushing lightly against the cool waters flowing gently in narrow stone canals. As you breathe in, the warm air dances with scents of jasmine and rose, perfectly balanced by a breeze engineered thousands of years ago. Of course, you probably won't survive the urge to plant your own Persian paradise after this, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment with your city and local time. Let's see who's awake and drifting along with us tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin your stroll through ancient Persia, perhaps pausing beside a carved marble bench beneath tall trees that sigh softly in the evening breeze. This isn't just a random gust, it's carefully calculated architecture. Persian gardens, or paradisa as the ancients called them, and yes, that's where the word paradise originates, were more than mere botanical arrangements. They were sophisticated ecological systems designed deliberately to capture and amplify breezes, transforming hot, arid climates into havens of cool relief. In a place like Persia, heat wasn't just uncomfortable, it defined life itself. If you were wealthy enough to afford it, the garden was your defense against the relentless sun. Persians understood that shade alone wouldn't suffice. Anyone who's ever stood under a tree on a blazing afternoon knows shade helps, but add a gentle, steady breeze, and suddenly you're in business. And business was good in Persia, as their garden designers became legendary for their ability to catch, guide, and enhance the cooling winds that wandered across the landscape. The art of catching breezes began with positioning. Persian architects and landscape designers paid close attention to the prevailing winds. Gardens were oriented specifically to harness these natural currents. High walls encircled the garden space, not merely for privacy, but to funnel the breezes inward, gently directing airflow where it was most needed. Each carefully placed gate and window acted as a subtle vent, orchestrating the flow of air like an invisible conductor leading an orchestra. Of course, Persian designers didn't stop at orientation. They got even craftier. Narrow waterways winding elegantly through gardens were essential elements in their design. Water was a precious resource in Persia, but its role wasn't limited to mere irrigation or aesthetic delight. The narrow channels called rills carried fresh water across stone beds and marble pathways, cooling the air as it moved. As breezes skimmed across the surface of this shallow water, they absorbed the moisture, becoming not just cooler, but pleasantly humidified, nature's early form of air conditioning. It's worth mentioning that Persian gardeners were deeply aware of something we today would call microclimates. They knew precisely how to manipulate plants and structures to create small pockets of cooler air within larger spaces. For instance, trees were carefully selected and placed not only for shade, but for their ability to redirect airflow. Sturdy cypresses acted like green columns, funneling breezes down corridors, while smaller, fragrant shrubs such as roses and jasmine scented the air, making each gust not only refreshing, but delightfully perfumed. As you stroll further into the garden, you might notice something else subtle yet powerful: symmetry. Persian gardens are famously geometric, precise, orderly, and balanced. But historians still argue whether this perfect geometry had more to do with symbolic and spiritual significance or pragmatic airflow design. Perhaps it was both. After all, the precise alignment of pathways, water features, and plantings created clear channels for air to move freely. Every row of flowers, every path, every pavilion seemed placed specifically to welcome and enhance the slightest breath of wind. Persian garden design wasn't just for the wealthy elite, it held deep philosophical roots. In Zoroastrian beliefs, gardens symbolized purity, tranquility, and a reflection of the cosmos itself. Breezes, therefore, weren't just convenient, they were spiritual breaths, whispers from the heavens, cleansing the soul as gently as they cooled the skin. In fact, Persian poetry frequently celebrated gardens and the refreshing breezes that graced them. Poets like Hafez and Sadi wrote verses describing gentle winds as messengers of peace and tranquility, metaphors for divine grace. Such poetic imagery shaped how Persians experienced their gardens. Breezes weren't simply weather, They were essential components of emotional and spiritual health. But perhaps one of the quirkiest aspects of these gardens is how utterly obsessed Persians became with wind-catching innovations. Early forms of what would become known later as badgers, wind towers, emerged specifically to enhance the garden experience. These towers captured breezes from above, channeling them downward into courtyards and pavilions, cooling not only outdoor spaces but indoor living areas too. It's oddly charming to think of ancient Persians proudly displaying their breezy technology, perhaps boasting gently at gatherings about who had the most advanced wind-catching tower in the neighborhood. You smile softly to yourself as you continue your imaginary stroll, feeling the gentle coolness of evening descend. The garden around you grows quieter, calmer, as lanterns glow gently along pathways. Even the night air here feels deliberately designed, soft, fragrant, and soothing. You realize that every element of this ancient garden, the walls, water, trees, even the scent, works seamlessly to provide comfort, tranquility, and coolness, crafted by minds that truly understood the delicate dance between humanity and nature. As the twilight deepens, you find yourself slowly sinking into that delightful place between wakefulness and sleep, your mind drifting gently like a leaf carried on a Persian breeze. Around you, the sounds of trickling water mingle gently with rustling leaves, the garden's whispering sounds lulling you ever deeper into relaxation. Tonight, as your eyes begin to close, you're quietly grateful for ancient Persian gardeners. They left us more than just designs and theories. They gave us pathways of tranquility, shaded avenues of restfulness, and a legacy of breezy serenity designed meticulously to soothe both body and soul. You find yourself strolling leisurely through gardens first imagined by the visionary Persian ruler, Cyrus the Great. It might be difficult to picture a powerful ancient conqueror, someone known for vast armies and epic battles, being deeply concerned with airflow and gentle breezes. But Cyrus wasn't your typical king. He wasn't just interested in territorial conquests. He was captivated by the subtler art of comfort. And what could be more comforting in the blistering Persian heat than a reliably cool breeze? As you step softly along a paved path lined with intricately laid mosaics, you begin to appreciate just how intentional Cyrus's blueprint for garden design truly was. It wasn't merely about beauty, though that was certainly present. It was fundamentally about making the scorching environment tolerable, even pleasant. He saw gardens as crucial extensions of the royal palace, not merely decoration, but practical, thoughtfully engineered spaces designed to soothe both body and mind. Cyrus chose the placement of gardens carefully, with a keen awareness of the prevailing winds. To him and the architects he employed, breeze catching wasn't merely an incidental feature, it was a precise science. Gardens were strategically positioned to intercept the fresh, cooler winds coming off distant mountains or rivers. Think of Cyrus, perhaps walking alongside his architects, pointing here and there with the authority of someone who genuinely understood how to catch the wind itself. Imagine him saying with a knowing smile, "Build the pavilion here. The breezes are sweetest when they arrive from that direction." And indeed, pavilions were central to Cyrus's garden designs, constructed explicitly as architectural wind catchers. These weren't just fancy shelters to sip tea under, although there was undoubtedly plenty of tea sipping happening. No, each pavilion was crafted with windows and open archways precisely angled to capture even the slightest breath of wind, amplifying it into something deliciously refreshing. Some historians speculate that these open structures acted almost like wind tunnels, channeling the air through the spaces, cooling the interiors naturally, without the need for any mechanical intervention. A breeze-enhanced pavilion in ancient Persia was the original eco-friendly luxury. Walking deeper into Cyrus's gardens, you'd find high walls around the perimeter, solid and protective, but also cleverly crafted to guide airflow inward. These garden walls weren't merely barriers, they functioned more like the boundaries of an enormous outdoor room, directing breezes towards the central areas where people gathered. The placement of each wall, doorway, and arch was no accident. Every single one was planned meticulously to ensure optimal airflow. You could almost picture Cyrus himself inspecting the work carefully, nodding his approval only when a gentle gust of wind slipped perfectly into the garden through a carefully placed gateway. One of the most delightful tricks in Cyrus's garden blueprint involved water. Persian gardeners quickly realized that combining moving water with airflow provided the most effective cooling effect possible in such a dry, arid climate. Narrow canals, delicately carved and precisely positioned, carried fresh water throughout the garden, gently humidifying and cooling the air as it moved. Often, these waterways fed into small ponds or fountains, ensuring that breezes would always be fresh, fragrant, and comfortably cool. On a scorching afternoon, a single gentle gust moving across a water channel could drop the temperature significantly, turning a blistering day into a relaxing experience. Of course, Cyrus knew well that trees played a vital role, too, and he made sure they were planted strategically. Tall, thin cypresses lined paths, not just for visual grandeur, but also to guide breezes like tall sentinels directing traffic. Shorter fruit trees and fragrant shrubs filled the spaces between them, further manipulating airflow. Together, they formed complex layers of vegetation, ensuring that every breeze passed gently through leaves, branches, and blossoms before reaching you, carrying the subtle fragrances of lemon blossoms, roses, and jasmine. Cyrus apparently believed strongly in aromatherapy long before it was fashionable. Interestingly, Cyrus's gardens also emphasized symmetry. While historians still debate the exact reasons behind this strict geometric order, was it spiritual, symbolic, practical, or perhaps a blend of all three? The results were undeniable. The geometry created corridors of open space perfectly aligned to channel airflow smoothly across the garden. Straight pathways intersected at precise angles, directing breezes towards central fountains and seating areas, as if the garden itself were guiding you gently toward relaxation. In Persian poetry and art from later periods, Cyrus's gardens became legendary symbols of harmony, balance, and cool tranquility. Writers describe these gardens with lush, evocative language, celebrating the genius behind their construction. Ancient poets loved to imagine themselves lounging within these perfect gardens, softly praising the sweet breezes that made life not just tolerable, but blissfully enjoyable. And perhaps one of the most charming quirks in Cyrus's approach was his insistence that breezes were not only for the comfort of royalty, but for the enjoyment of everyone who entered. Historical accounts suggest that Cyrus encouraged his architects and gardeners to create spaces accessible to more than just the royal elite, ensuring even visitors or humble courtiers could relax, socialize, and refresh themselves amid gentle winds. Tonight, as your stroll through Cyrus's breezy gardens gently winds down, you imagine the ancient ruler himself, taking quiet satisfaction in his masterpiece. Cyrus didn't merely conquer territories, he conquered something far more elusive, the Persian heat itself. He used wisdom, geometry, plants, water, and a profound understanding of nature to transform spaces that could easily have been unbearably hot into paradises of cool tranquility. So, as you pause beneath a pavilion, leaning gently against a cool stone column, feeling the subtle breeze caress your face, perhaps you whisper a quiet thanks to Cyrus the Great. His thoughtful attention to detail, his visionary planning, and his relentless quest for comfortable living left us with an enduring lesson: that even the gentlest breeze can be designed, captured, and perfected into something beautifully refreshing. Your imaginary stroll continues deeper into these ancient gardens, and by now you're beginning to sense the intricate balance between nature and design that defined Persian mastery. You've admired pavilions engineered to catch breezes, marveled at Cyrus's visionary garden blueprint, and now as you turn onto a new, gently winding path, you're drawn toward the elegant interplay of water and shade, perhaps the two most fundamental elements in creating the refreshing microclimates Persians loved. At this point, you're probably wondering, did Persian designers really get so detailed? Well, imagine living in a land where the sun was relentless, the climate arid, and shade and coolness weren't just luxuries, they were absolute necessities. You'd become an expert quickly. Too, Persian garden planners knew exactly what they were doing, crafting every element to contribute seamlessly to the overall experience. Water, for instance, wasn't only a decorative or agricultural element, it was central to their cooling strategy. Strolling slowly beside a slender canal lined with polished stones, you observe how cleverly these waterways were placed. Narrow channels of water, or rills, extended like delicate fingers through every garden. They were shallow, just deep enough to flow gently, maximizing the surface area exposed to air. And here's the trick. Air moving across water cools down significantly. Persian designers, ever observant, harnessed this natural phenomenon brilliantly, creating a subtle yet highly effective air conditioning system centuries before mechanical devices would even be imagined. These flowing water features were never random. Persian gardeners positioned them carefully, orienting canals to catch and direct prevailing breezes, guiding cool air precisely towards seating areas, walkways, and pavilions. Imagine relaxing by such a waterway on a hot day, feeling the gentlest, coolest breeze brush against your face, cooled and scented by the rippling water. This surely was paradise, or as close to it as one could engineer. But the water wasn't merely functional, it was visually stunning. Often canals fed into central pools or gently bubbling fountains, adorned with beautiful mosaic tiles or surrounded by flowering plants. These pools were both practical and aesthetic, drawing breezes toward their larger surface areas and releasing cooled air into surrounding spaces. You might find yourself resting on a marble bench beside such a pool, idly trailing your fingers through water clear enough to reflect the sky. As the cool moisture evaporates from your fingertips, you're reminded how every tiny detail here has been designed with one aim: your comfort. As your stroll continues beneath a canopy of leaves, you notice that the choice of trees and plants was equally deliberate. Persian gardeners understood the critical role of shade, not just any shade, but carefully constructed layers of vegetation providing optimal cooling. Tall, stately trees like cypresses, oaks, and planes provided high-level shade, filtering sunlight and drastically reducing ground temperatures beneath their sprawling branches. Below these towering trees, smaller fruit-bearing varieties like figs, pomegranates, and citrus trees created mid-level shade, ensuring the sun's intensity was further softened before reaching the ground. Shrubs and flowering plants beneath them completed the garden's vertical layering, creating pockets of cooler, moister air that lingered delightfully at ground level. This wasn't random gardening, it was ecological art. And the Persians weren't shy about fragrance either. As the gentle breeze wafts through the garden, it's not only cooled by water, but perfumed by jasmine, roses, and lavender planted strategically to maximize sensory pleasure. Imagine sitting quietly beneath the branches of a fragrant orange tree, inhaling deeply and feeling the tranquilizing effect of this perfectly balanced environment. These gardens weren't simply designed, they were choreographed experiences. But the genius behind Persian shade went even further. The precise arrangement of trees could guide breezes down particular corridors or toward designated areas, amplifying airflow exactly where people gathered. Like living walls, trees could channel breezes toward pavilions or seating spaces, gently directing airflow to maintain a consistently comfortable climate. And speaking of trees, here's a quirky tidbit you might enjoy. Persians didn't just plant their trees wherever felt right. Historical sources suggest they occasionally transplanted mature trees from distant regions to achieve immediate shade and airflow. Imagine the logistics, carefully transporting massive, established trees just to ensure perfect shade and breeze from day one. It was an extravagance that spoke clearly about the importance they placed on garden design. Of course, historians still argue whether such elaborate tree-moving projects were commonplace or rare exceptions reserved only for the wealthiest gardens. Still, even the possibility reveals how seriously Persians took their garden aesthetics and comfort. As your stroll continues, you begin to appreciate the garden, not just as a beautiful retreat, but as a carefully balanced system. Every plant chosen, every canal positioned, every tree planted precisely to create an ideal microclimate. Gardens were designed not just for momentary relaxation, but to support long hours of leisurely living, reading poetry, playing music, hosting guests, all enhanced by the comfort provided by intelligent shade and cool canals. Persian garden philosophy was deeply tied to their beliefs about health and well-being. Coolness, comfort, and tranquility weren't merely pleasant, they were seen as vital to a balanced, healthy life. Persian medical texts from the era even recommended regular visits to gardens as therapeutic treatments, prescribing the soothing effects of shade and cool breezes to ease stress and improve overall health. As your walk draws gently to a pause beneath an ornate wooden pavilion, you rest for a moment. From here, you see the garden as a living work of art, designed meticulously by ancient hands that deeply understood nature's subtleties. Every feature, canals, pools, fountains, trees, is part of a harmonious whole, each enhancing the other, creating an environment of constant comfort and tranquility. You lean back slightly, enjoying the gentle rustle of leaves and the whispering trickle of water, soothed deeply by the sensation of cool air gently passing across your skin. In this quiet moment, you're reminded of the profound intelligence behind these ancient designs. They were built not merely for visual beauty, but to provide enduring comfort, to transform harsh environments into places of effortless relaxation. Tonight, as you drift gently further into relaxation, perhaps you'll carry with you the quiet wisdom of these ancient Persian gardens, a gentle reminder that true luxury lies not just in what you see, but in how deeply and comfortably it makes you feel. Continuing your slow, gentle walk through this thoughtfully engineered Persian paradise, you find yourself approaching a graceful pavilion nestled among lush, scented foliage. Up to this point, you felt the subtle, skillfully directed breezes drifting through pathways and along canals. But stepping into one of these elegant structures, you realize the ancient Persians took their breeze-catching architecture to an entirely new level. These garden pavilions weren't merely decorative places to lounge and chat, though they served those purposes wonderfully. No, these structures were masterful examples of early environmental architecture, built specifically to catch and amplify breezes. Standing inside, you begin to appreciate the meticulous planning involved. Windows and archways weren't merely positioned for scenic views, they were carefully aligned with prevailing wind directions. Every opening, every ornamental detail, every column was part of a sophisticated ventilation system, a carefully choreographed dance with nature itself. Imagine settling onto a soft cushion inside such a pavilion. Warm sunlight filters gently through decorative lattice screens, casting delicate patterns on the polished stone floor. But more remarkable is the consistent, cool breeze passing effortlessly through. You feel it brush your face gently, swirling subtly around the interior, creating an atmosphere of peaceful relaxation. It's easy to see why Persian aristocrats spent countless leisurely hours here, exchanging poetry and music in a perfect climate-controlled environment centuries before air conditioning was invented. Now, these pavilions often featured a remarkable architectural invention, a type of wind tower known in Persian as the badger. These towers extended above the pavilion rooftops, looking like ornamental chimneys but serving a far more ingenious function. Each tower had multiple openings, positioned to capture wind from any direction, funneling fresh, cool air downward through interior shafts, dispersing it throughout the pavilion below. Historians still debate exactly how these early wind towers originated. Some argue that Persian builders borrowed the concept from even older Mesopotamian designs, while others insist it was a unique local innovation perfected in response to Persia's hot, arid climate. Whichever side of the debate you favor, there's no denying the effectiveness of this ancient technology. Inside a pavilion equipped with a badger, even the hottest summer afternoons felt comfortably cool and refreshing. What's particularly fascinating about these wind towers is their simplicity. Without moving parts, fuel, or complicated mechanisms, they relied solely on physics, the natural properties of air movement and temperature differentials. Warm air naturally rises, creating low-pressure zones that draw cooler air down through the shafts into the interior spaces. This continuous circulation didn't just cool the air, it purified and freshened it as well, removing stale indoor air and replacing it with fresh breezes from outside. Persian builders often enhance this natural ventilation by adding small, shallow pools or fountains at the base of the towers. As the incoming breeze passed over these water surfaces, it was further cooled and humidified, providing additional relief during Persia's notoriously dry summers. The combination was brilliant, simple, effective, and entirely natural. But Persian pavilions didn't only rely on wind towers. Even their roofs were designed for optimal airflow. Flat or gently domed roofs included special vents and strategically placed openings, ensuring that rising warm air would escape, creating an upward draft that further encouraged cool breezes to flow inward from below. This carefully engineered system of circulation maintained a constant, comfortable indoor temperature, even in blazing midday heat. And it wasn't just practicality driving this design, aesthetics played an equally significant role. Pavilions were built using beautifully decorated tiles, intricate carved wood, and elegant arches, blending functionality seamlessly with beauty. Every decorative element, from the graceful arches to delicate floral patterns, contributed subtly to air movement. Ornamentation was never merely decorative. It served dual purposes, adding elegance while encouraging breezes to flow more smoothly around corners and through openings. While you sit comfortably inside your imagined pavilion, enjoying this pleasant breeze, it's intriguing to consider how deeply these spaces influenced Persian culture and lifestyle. Hosting garden parties in these pavilions was a major part of Persian elite social life. Gatherings featured elaborate feasts, poetic recitals, music, and philosophical debates, all enjoyed in spaces carefully engineered for maximum comfort. Imagine the laughter, gentle chatter, and soothing music drifting through gardens, carried gently by the ever-present breezes these pavilions so thoughtfully captured. Persians were proud of their pavilion designs and their mastery of breeze-catching architecture. Owning a particularly well-ventilated pavilion was considered a significant status symbol. Nobles often engaged in subtle but fierce competitions, each trying to outdo the others with more elaborate, more comfortable, and more perfectly breezy structures. As you slowly stand, preparing to continue your stroll, you can't help but smile at how delightfully competitive Persian aristocrats could become over something as intangible as airflow. Yet in a land where shade and comfort were valuable commodities, mastering breeze capture truly was worth boasting about. You leave the pavilion reluctantly, stepping gently back onto a garden path shaded by carefully arranged rows of cypress and plane trees. Even as you move outdoors, the pavilion's thoughtful design remains evident, seamlessly connecting interior comfort with the garden's overall airflow system. Tonight, as your gentle journey continues, perhaps you'll carry with you a newfound appreciation for these elegant Persian structures. They're more than just historical curiosities. They are reminders of humanity's timeless desire to harmonize architecture with nature, to craft environments where comfort and elegance coexist effortlessly. With each step through the garden, you're reminded gently that these pavilions weren't merely shelters. They were instruments of pleasure and refinement, designed meticulously to transform the everyday act of breathing into an art form. As your stroll continues, the breeze still softly brushes your face, carrying with it whispers of poetry, echoes of music, and the timeless beauty of ancient Persian wisdom. Your stroll continues leisurely along another winding path, where the carefully ordered geometry of the Persian garden unfolds beautifully around you. At first glance, you might assume this perfect symmetry is purely aesthetic, a visual testament to Persian taste for harmony and balance. But the reality is even more intriguing. Persian garden geometry wasn't merely decorative. It was an essential part of their strategy to master breezes, a subtle but sophisticated airflow mechanism disguised as elegance. Imagine walking slowly down a perfectly straight stone pathway, flanked by rows of trees, lush flower beds, and slender canals filled with cool, gently rippling water. This symmetry isn't accidental. It's a precise engineering choice, perfected over generations of trial, error, and observation. Each straight path acts like a corridor, guiding breezes effortlessly through the garden. Intersections of paths and canals are precisely positioned, deliberately creating crossroads of airflow where the breeze intensifies pleasantly. As you walk deeper into this geometric masterpiece, you begin to notice how every element has been planned meticulously. Fountains aren't randomly placed. They stand at precise focal points where pathways intersect. This isn't just to please the eye, though it certainly does that beautifully. It's to ensure maximum cooling effectiveness. Where paths cross, breezes meet, mingle, and intensify, cooling the air around central fountains and seating areas. Even subtle architectural choices, like the shape and size of pools or the placement of benches, are calibrated carefully to benefit from this gentle, consistent airflow. In the Persian worldview, geometry represented much more than simple practicality. Scholars still debate whether the precise symmetry and proportional beauty of these gardens were primarily symbolic, spiritual, or purely practical. Perhaps it was all of these, intricately blended together. Geometry, after all, held deep philosophical significance in Persian culture, symbolizing order, balance, and the perfect harmony of creation. The square layout, common in Persian gardens, symbolize the four elements: earth, water, air, and fire, each balanced and interconnected, each vital for life itself. Yet, beyond symbolic meanings, Persian gardeners clearly understood practical airflow dynamics. Consider how the four-part division, often called chaharbagh, guided airflow naturally through each section of the garden. These quadrants created distinct zones, each subtly different in microclimate, depending on how breezes were channeled. A central water feature or pavilion typically occupied the garden's midpoint, serving as the heart of this system, collecting and circulating breezes in a harmonious flow. And speaking of water, it's worth pausing a moment to appreciate the intricate precision involved in placing these water elements. Canals and fountains followed strict geometric patterns, aligned perfectly with garden walls and pathways. This wasn't merely for show, it ensured airflow moved predictably, allowing gardeners to fine-tune their cooling strategy. As you stand beside one of these gently flowing canals, imagine how carefully its direction was chosen. Not a single inch accidental, every curve meticulously planned. Now, if geometry in these gardens feels incredibly precise, it's because Persians truly saw gardening as a blend of science and art. Nothing here was left to chance. Even the width and height of pathways and the spacing between trees were thoughtfully calculated. Narrower paths allowed breezes to move faster, creating stronger cooling effects, while wider spaces slowed breezes gently, allowing cool air to linger comfortably around seating areas. Trees placed at exact intervals controlled shade and airflow, ensuring each breeze was perfectly moderated. But Persians weren't rigid in their geometric approach. Rather, they embraced it playfully, elegantly integrating curves and subtle asymmetries within the broader symmetry. For example, paths sometimes curve gently, not disrupting the overall airflow, but enhancing the experience, revealing fresh vistas with each gentle turn. Within the geometric order, Persian gardeners maintained an organic balance, reminding visitors subtly of nature's freedom even within human-designed order. Perhaps one of the quirkiest aspects of Persian garden geometry is how precisely gardeners time flowering and fruiting plants within these patterns. Imagine Persian gardeners carefully planning exactly when and where different plants would bloom. Each season brought a fresh wave of blossoms, each breeze carrying a new, subtle fragrance as you move through geometric garden spaces. These gardens weren't merely static arrangements. They were carefully choreographed performances, changing gently with time and wind. And as you wander deeper into your imaginary Persian garden tonight, perhaps pausing briefly beneath a fruit-laden pomegranate tree, you begin to appreciate this complexity fully. The geometry of the garden doesn't feel strict or constrained. Instead, it feels intuitive, perfectly comfortable, gently guiding your steps and subtly directing your senses. Everything here seems to breathe in quiet harmony. The water, the plants, even the gentle breeze itself, all influenced profoundly by the elegance of garden geometry. In classical Persian poetry, this precise geometry often symbolized deeper truths. Poets praised gardens as mirrors of cosmic order, balanced harmonies that mirrored divine perfection. Strolling along these perfectly balanced paths, you understand what they meant. Persian garden geometry wasn't merely about controlling nature, it was about aligning gently with it, collaborating subtly, creating harmony rather than domination. Tonight, as your stroll gently continues toward evening, the garden's geometric elegance feels even more soothing. Shadows lengthen softly, adding new dimensions to the careful patterns around you. Breezes remain gentle, continuous, perfectly cooled by carefully placed water and guided effortlessly by precise pathways. The garden seems to sigh softly in contentment, proud of its centuries-old secrets. You pause again, perhaps near a particularly beautiful intersection of paths, where breezes cross gently over a fountain's sparkling surface. Here, in this perfectly engineered oasis, you feel yourself relax deeply. There's a comfort in knowing how thoroughly Persians considered your every need. Even the air itself is gently, thoughtfully managed for your comfort. The soft trickling of water, the whisper of leaves, and the fragrance of blossoms blend seamlessly, carried by a breeze perfected by ancient wisdom. You wander further and suddenly the garden reveals another secret, one that awakens your senses beyond just sight and touch. The air is not only cooler but carries a complex, intoxicating blend of scents. Persian gardens were carefully crafted not just for breezes or shade, but for fragrance. weaving nature's aromas into the very fabric of their design. Picture yourself strolling along in a path bordered by jasmine and rose bushes. There are tiny white and pink blossoms glowing softly in the fading light. Every gentle breeze carries their scent like a whispered invitation to relax. The choice of plants was deliberate. These aromatic beauties were planted strategically to perfume the air exactly where the cool breezes flowed most freely. It's as if the garden itself was a living perfume factory, where every breeze mixed and mingled with delicate fragrances designed to soothe and delight. Now here's a quirky detail. The Persian word for garden, peridatsa, literally means walled enclosure, but it also suggests a place of fragrance. This linguistic root hints at how deeply intertwined scent and enclosure were in Persian garden culture. The walls didn't just protect the garden physically, they also helped trap and concentrate these fragrances, allowing the breezes to carry them softly through garden rooms like invisible threads of calm. Persians selected plants not only for their beauty or shade, but especially for their fragrance. Roses were favorites, but so were honeysuckle, orange blossoms, lavender, and myrtle. Some plants, like musk and sandalwood trees, added subtle, lingering undertones, giving the garden's scent a complex depth. As you inhale deeply, you realize the garden's perfume changes throughout the day. Lighter and fresher in the morning, richer and more heady in the evening, evolving like a slow-moving story told by the wind. The sensory experience was intentional. Garden designers knew that scent could calm the mind, reduce stress, and create a sense of well-being. In fact, Persian doctors believed that fragrant gardens had healing powers. They recommended time spent in gardens with aromatic plants as treatments for ailments from headaches to melancholy. Historians still argue whether these beliefs were grounded more in superstition or early forms of aromatherapy, but the effect was undeniable. Persian gardens weren't just cool places to sit. They were spaces designed to nurture body and soul. Imagine then an afternoon spent lying beneath the dappled shade of a flowering orange tree, the air heavy with sweetness, a cool breeze brushing softly across your skin. The scent isn't overpowering but delicate, perfectly balanced by the gentle sound of water trickling nearby. It's a multi-sensory harmony: sight, sound, scent, touch, and even temperature, all working together to create a profound sense of peace. And of course, these fragrant breezes were also social tools. Persian nobility used the scent-filled gardens to impress guests, setting the stage for poetry readings, music, or philosophical discussions. The delicate scents drifting on the breeze became part of the ambiance, subtly shaping moods and encouraging reflection and calm conversation. There's a charming anecdote from Persian history about a particularly fussy noble who insisted his garden have a precise mix of scented plants so that the breeze would always smell just right, regardless of the season. Historians still debate whether this was an actual person or a poetic metaphor, but it perfectly captures how seriously Persians took the olfactory experience in their gardens. Even more fascinating, some Persian garden designers experimented with fragrant plants that released their strongest scents only at certain times of day or night. This meant the garden's perfume evolved dynamically with the sun's path, adding a temporal rhythm to the sensory journey. Imagine walking through a garden at twilight as the jasmine and night-blooming tuberose release their powerful, intoxicating scents, carried softly on cooling evening breezes. Tonight, as you breathe in the imagined fragrances drifting on your skin, you begin to sense the extraordinary complexity behind Persian garden design. It wasn't merely about shade or water or even geometry. It was about orchestrating a full sensory experience, one where breezes carried whispers of scent, cooling touch, and gentle sound to create a sanctuary for body, mind, and soul. So as your eyelids grow heavier and the garden's fragrant breeze seems to lull you toward rest, take a moment to appreciate this ancient wisdom. Persian gardens weren't simply plots of land. They were carefully composed symphonies of nature and design, where every breeze was scented, every shadow was deliberate, and every moment was crafted for calm. As you continue your slow journey through the garden, you might think the Persians had already done all they could to harness the wind, but here comes a fascinating twist. The ancient Persians didn't just rely on natural breezes. They invented clever architectural features designed specifically to capture, amplify, and circulate air in their gardens and homes. These innovations, especially the early versions of what we now call wind towers or badgers, show a remarkable grasp of airflow that still inspires architects today. Picture a slender, beautifully decorated tower rising above the flat roofs of the garden pavilions. From afar, it might look like a fanciful chimney, but its real purpose is far more ingenious. These badgers are engineered to catch the slightest breath of wind from any direction, funneling it down into the living spaces below. The breeze, naturally cooler and fresher at higher altitudes, is guided down stone shafts and released gently inside, creating a refreshing airflow without any mechanical help. One quirky detail is that some badgers were built with multiple openings facing different directions. This meant they could capture shifting winds throughout the day and night, ensuring a constant flow of air even when the breeze changed. You can imagine ancient Persian architects debating over the optimal number of openings, their designs blending function and beauty in equal measure. Historians still argue whether badgers were an indigenous Persian invention or borrowed and refined from earlier Mesopotamian or Egyptian air cooling methods. Whatever their origin, what's undeniable is the brilliance of adapting such towers for garden pavilions. These structures help transform hot, dry air into a cooling, breathable oasis. Some badgers even incorporated water features inside. Imagine a small pool or fountain at the base of the shaft, so that as the wind passes over the water, it cools further by evaporation before reaching the occupants below. This early form of passive evaporative cooling is astonishingly effective, a testament to Persian environmental ingenuity. Beyond badgers, Persian architects designed gardens with other subtle airflow innovations. Narrow alleys between walls and buildings were aligned precisely to funnel prevailing winds, while carefully placed screens and latticework helped direct and diffuse breezes gently around seating areas and pathways. This meticulous attention to airflow was partly practical, combating scorching temperatures, but it also reflected cultural values. Cool air was associated with purity, health, and spiritual calm. Persian literature often described breezes as gentle messengers from the divine, carrying blessings and cleansing the soul. So these architectural wind features were not just engineering feats. They were woven deeply into Persian symbolism and spirituality. Imagine yourself resting beneath a wind tower, feeling the steady flow of air gently stir the leaves and cool your skin. It's no wonder these gardens became retreats, not only for relaxation but for healing. Persian medical texts recommended spending time in breezy, shaded gardens as therapy for ailments ranging from headaches to melancholy. The air itself was considered a kind of medicine. So tonight, as your thoughts drift along with the cool breezes, you can appreciate how Persian innovations turned simple garden spaces into marvels of environmental design. These early wind towers are echoes of a time when humans lived in intimate harmony with nature, crafting their surroundings to comfort body, mind, and spirit. And perhaps next time you feel a gentle breeze on your skin, you'll smile knowing that some of the world's earliest air conditioning systems were created thousands of years ago in Persian gardens. Ingenious, natural, and beautifully simple. You settle comfortably into the rhythm of the garden's soft murmur. The trickle of water, the rustle of leaves, and the whisper of a gentle breeze that seems to carry stories across time. These gardens weren't merely quiet refuges. They were vibrant social hubs, where Persian royalty and nobility gathered to celebrate life, art, and culture, all while being coolly caressed by the carefully choreographed wind. Imagine lavish outdoor gatherings set beneath the shade of elegant pavilions, where silk-clad guests recline on plush cushions, sipping fragrant teas and indulging in sweet pastries. The warm sun filters softly through latticed windows, yet the breeze, expertly captured by architectural design, ensures the air remains fresh, light, and inviting. These were not just parties, they were sensory symphonies, a perfect marriage of natural comfort, social ritual, and refined pleasure. Hosting such events was more than entertainment. It was a display of status and power. The ability to summon cool breezes on scorching summer days was akin to wielding a form of nature-based magic, a sign of immense wealth and sophisticated taste. Persian nobles subtly competed, each boasting whose garden could capture the most refreshing winds or whose pavilion offered the most serene refuge from the unforgiving sun. In a culture where hospitality was sacred, offering guests the gift of cool air was the highest compliment. These garden parties were infused with culture and intellect, Poets, musicians, philosophers, and storytellers filled the air with their voices and instruments, often reciting works by masters like Hafez, Saadi, and Rumi. The verses about love, nature, the divine, and human frailty mingled with the natural sounds of water trickling over stone and leaves rustling in the breeze. The wind carried the melodies and words softly through the garden, creating a shared sensory tapestry that delighted and inspired all present. There's a delightful anecdote preserved in Persian chronicles about one such garden gathering. A sudden shift in the wind carried the heady fragrance of blooming jasmine from one side of the pavilion to the other, causing waves of surprised delight among the guests. This accidental perfuming became the evening's highlight, inspiring spontaneous poetry and laughter. Moments like these illustrate how Persian gardens were living, breathing artworks where nature's whimsy was cherished as much as human design. Interestingly, historians still debate the accessibility of these gardens. Some argue they were exclusive sanctuaries for the elite, closed off from common folk, while others propose that more public gardens existed where ordinary people could also enjoy the cooling relief and social vibrancy. Regardless of access, the cultural importance of garden parties and the reverence for breezes in Persian society remain undeniable. The garden was a social stage where politics, romance, philosophy, and artistry intertwined. These gatherings were more than leisure. They were crucial venues for forging alliances, debating ideas, and cultivating artistic expression, all conducted in an environment that honored and harmonized with nature. The breeze that swept through the gardens was like a silent, graceful host, smoothing conversation, cooling tempers, and refreshing minds. Imagine yourself immersed in such a gathering, the murmur of voices blending with the gentle cascade of fountains and the soft rustling of leaves. You feel the breeze teasing strands of your hair and lightly brushing your skin, a welcome reprieve from the day's heat. Around you, guests lean in to exchange whispered confidences. Poets breathe life into verses, and musicians coax melodies that seem to float on the air itself. The atmosphere is one of ease and enchantment, a perfect moment suspended in time. Even the food and drinks served were part of this sensory experience. Sweetened rosewater, pomegranate juice, and delicate pastries perfumed with saffron complemented the garden's natural scents. Dishes were presented with as much care as the garden itself, designed to delight the palate while matching the garden's elegance and refinement. Social rituals at these parties emphasize harmony between guests, between humanity and nature, and between the senses. The breeze carried all these subtle interactions, gently connecting people and place, mood and moment. It was a living metaphor for Persian values: balance, beauty, hospitality, and respect for nature's gifts. As the sun dips below the horizon, the garden softens into twilight. Lanterns flicker to life, casting warm pools of light amid the darkening greenery. The evening air cools further, the breeze becoming a gentle caress that lulls conversations to quieter tones. Music slows, voices soften, and the garden becomes a cocoon of calm. Tonight, as you breathe in this imagined evening's air, you feel a quiet gratitude for these ancient spaces. Persian gardens were not just retreats from heat, they were cultural heartbeats, places where nature, art, and humanity intertwined seamlessly. The carefully caught and cherished breeze was a symbol of all that was elegant, nurturing, and deeply human. So as the garden's soft night air begins to settle, carrying the last notes of music and poetry into the darkening sky, you feel yourself drawing closer to peaceful rest. The ancient gardens teach us that luxury is not just in possessions or grand gestures, but in the subtle, artful embrace of nature's breath, soft, soothing, and timeless. You wake to the hollow ring of the dinner bell, twice for third class as always. The clang echoes faintly through the cramped, dimly lit corridors, bouncing off peeling paint and worn wooden beams. The air smells heavy with coal dust, boiled greens, and a faint, stubborn tang of salt water that seems to cling to everything. You rub your eyes, still gritty with sleep, and swing your legs down from the narrow bunk. The rough wood creaks under you as you stand and stretch, the ship's gentle rocking and already rocking your balance, just enough to remind you you're far from solid ground. Around you, the hum of waking passengers grows louder. The narrow hallway outside fills with murmurs in a dozen languages: Italian, Polish, Russian, Yiddish, Gaelic, and more. A cacophony of hope, fear, and exhaustion all bundled into this transient shipbound community. You spot a mother carefully fastening her child's threadbare coat, a gaunt man hunched over a folded letter, and a young couple whispering nervously about the new life they seek across the ocean. The ship itself feels like a small, crowded city, each cramped corridor and shared space packed with stories. Your footsteps echo faintly on the wooden planks as you join the slow-moving tide of passengers heading toward the dining saloon. The hallways seem impossibly narrow for the crowd, the air thick and stale, warmed by the bodies of hundreds packed into this floating vessel. By now you've learned the rhythm of meals here: soup, stew, bread, pudding, and then back to soup again. The predictability isn't dull, it's oddly comforting, like a metronome keeping time amid uncertainty. Tonight's meal is rice soup, thin broth with a few grains drifting like clouds in a dull sky. You've eaten this meal more times than you can count, but still it offers a small warmth against the damp chill. Entering the dining saloon, the low ceiling presses close, and the long wooden tables are already crowded with tired faces. Some passengers wear the finery of the upper decks. Many are cloaked in the worn fabrics of steerage. Regardless of rank, you'll share the same tired eyes, the same gnawing hunger and restless hope. The air is dense, layered with the scents of boiled cabbage, damp wool, unwashed bodies, and the faintest traces of fresh bread from the galley. Around you, conversations weave together in a tapestry of accents and dialects. Snatches of phrases drift past. New job in Chicago. Family awaits in New York. Work is scarce, but hope is scarce too. Children tug at sleeves, eyes wide with wonder and fatigue, while elderly men exchange tales of distant villages and lost homelands. The whole ship hums with quiet dreams, mingled with the sharp edge of anxiety. You find a spot near a grimy window. Beyond the glass, the ocean stretches dark and endless under a heavy sky. The cold, salt breeze barely penetrates the thick walls of the ship, but you imagine its cool touch on your skin, the sharp tang of freedom beyond the rails. Historians still debate whether the sparse meals served in steerage were the result of merciless cost-cutting or unavoidable logistical constraints. Some say shipping companies slashed rations to boost profits. Others argue the challenges of preserving fresh food for long voyages limited options. Probably it was a cruel combination of both, with human suffering caught in the middle. You lift your spoon and sip the lukewarm rice soup slowly. The warmth is modest but welcome, a small comfort amid uncertainty. Your mind drifts to the lives waiting on distant shores, streets unfamiliar, jobs unknown, new languages to learn. You wonder who will find kindness, who will face cold shoulders, and who will lose themselves in the crowd. The ship creaks softly, rocked by waves that whisper secrets in a language only the ocean knows. Somewhere off in the night, a distant foghorn mourns a lonely song swallowed by the wind. Lantern light flickers in the hall, casting dancing shadows over faces marked by hardship and hope. The murmurs fade into quiet as children nestle close to parents, eyelids heavy with exhaustion. The scent of damp wood mingles with salt air, the rhythmic slap of water against the hull creating a gentle lullaby. Around you, strangers, now temporary companions, prepare for sleep, their breaths slowing in unison. You rise from the table, careful not to disturb those still eating. Your footsteps echo lightly on the worn floor as you make your way back to the narrow stairwell. The ship sways gently, a constant heartbeat beneath your feet. You climb back to your bunk, each step a small reassurance amid the vast unknown. As your head meets the thin pillow, the sounds of the ocean and whispered stories drift through your mind. You close your eyes and imagine fresh fields, open skies, and cool breezes, not unlike those you read about in Persian gardens. A reminder that somewhere beyond the waves lies a new beginning. Tonight, as sleep enfolds you in its quiet embrace, the ship carries you steadily onward, a fragile vessel cradling dreams, hopes, and fears on the endless, patient sea. You wake slowly, the first light of dawn filtering softly through the small, salt-streaked window of your cabin. The ship is alive with the low murmurs of waking passengers and the gentle creak of wood settling after hours of rocking on the restless sea. A faint breeze slips through the cracks in the deck, carrying the scent of salt, seaweed, and the faintest trace of the blooming flowers someone tends below decks in a tiny patch of green. You inhale deeply, letting the cool, fresh air fill your lungs. A welcome contrast to the stale, heavy atmosphere inside the ship's cramped compartments. As you step onto the deck, the vast ocean stretches endlessly, its surface a glittering mosaic of early morning light and soft, rolling waves. The breeze greets you like an old friend, cool and playful, teasing strands of your hair and carrying whispers of faraway lands. For a moment, your thoughts drift back to those ancient Persian gardens you've been imagining, places of serene beauty where water, shade, and breeze are woven together in perfect harmony to soothe the body and spirit. Here on the ship, the breeze is less controlled, more wild and untamed, but no less vital. You find a quiet spot near the ship's modest garden, a small area lovingly tended by the crew and passengers alike. It is humble, just a handful of potted plants and a patch of earth where some hardy flowers bloom despite the salty air. But to you, it is a sanctuary, a tiny oasis of calm amid the vastness of the sea and the uncertainty of the journey. Sitting beneath a simple wooden arbor, you feel the breeze stir the leaves above, carrying with it the faint scent of sea salt mixed with the subtle fragrance of jasmine and rose. The garden here may be far from the grand, geometric paradises of ancient Persia, but the principles remain the same, creating a space where nature's gifts, air, water, fragrance, and shade, combine to nurture the weary body and restless mind. You breathe in the mingled scents and let your thoughts settle. Historians still debate whether Persian gardens and their breezes held genuine medicinal power, or if such claims were largely symbolic and spiritual. Some argue that the cool, scented air could ease ailments, lift spirits, and restore balance to the body's humors, a primitive form of what we might now call holistic healthcare. Others suggest the stories were metaphorical, celebrating the idea of harmony between humans and nature rather than literal healing. But as you sit here in this simple ship-aboard garden, feeling the breeze caress your skin and soothe your thoughts, the wisdom feels tangible and real. You watch as a few early risers emerge from the cabins, faces pale but eyes brightening with the promise of a new day. Conversations begin gently, voices hushed but warm. Someone hums a quiet tune and a child laughs softly nearby. The garden seems to pulse with a slow, calming rhythm, a fragile heartbeat in the endless motion of the sea. The sun climbs higher, casting golden light over the deck, warming the wood beneath your feet. The breeze picks up, a playful current that dances through the rigging and carries the mingled scents far across the ship. You close your eyes briefly, savoring the moment, the delicate balance of cool air, warm sun, and quiet peace. Your thoughts turn inward, reflecting on the journey ahead. The Persian gardens taught you that true comfort comes not only from grand design or wealth, but from attentiveness to small details. The careful placement of a tree to catch a breeze, the gentle flow of water that cools and calms, the mingling of fragrant blooms that soothe the senses. These lessons echo beyond history, whispering their truth in the everyday moments of human life. You think of the people aboard this ship, each carrying their own hopes and fears. Some are escaping famine, persecution, or poverty. Others chase dreams of opportunity and freedom. The voyage is long and uncertain, and the future unknown. But moments like this, a cool breeze on a warm morning, the quiet sanctuary of a garden, offer fragile but vital comfort. You stand and begin to walk slowly along the deck, letting the breeze guide you. Passengers greet each other with tired smiles and tentative warmth. The ship hums softly beneath your feet, a living vessel carrying dreams across the vast, patient sea. You pause by the rail, gazing out at the horizon where sky and water blend into a seamless blue. The wind lifts your hair and you feel connected, not just to the earth and sea, but to the ancient wisdom of those who first understood how to craft spaces of peace amid hardship. Tonight, when you return to your bunk, you'll carry this calm with you, a quiet refuge woven from ancient gardens, cool breezes, and enduring hope. The journey continues, but so does the breath of comfort, softly lulling you toward rest. In this way, the legacy of Persian gardens, masterful blends of nature and design, air and water, scent and shade, lives on in the small moments of your voyage. Their spirit is not confined to marble fountains or perfectly trimmed cypresses, but breathes quietly wherever we find solace in the gentle embrace of the natural world. And so, as the day unfolds and the ship cuts steadily through the waves, you hold close the simple, profound truth that even amid the uncertainty of the sea, the softness of a breeze can steady the heart and soothe the soul. You find yourself drawn into a deeper understanding of how Persian culture viewed the breeze not just as a natural phenomenon, but as a symbol of status and social standing. Owning a garden that captured the freshest, coolest winds was a mark of prestige, a subtle yet powerful way to signal wealth, power, and refinement. As you imagine wandering these gardens, you begin to sense how airflow was woven into the fabric of Persian society, shaping not only physical comfort, but also social dynamics. In the bustling palaces and stately homes of Persian nobility, gardens were more than just private retreats. They were stages on which power was displayed. The ability to summon a gentle breeze, to sit cool and relaxed under the sun, while others sweltered, was an enviable luxury. Aristocrats invested heavily in garden design, commissioning architects and horticulturists to engineer landscapes that maximized airflow, shade, and fragrance. Each element was carefully curated to impress guests and rival nobles alike. The breeze became a kind of social currency. Persian nobles boasted about whose garden caught the best winds, whose water channels cooled the air most effectively, whose wind towers reached higher and captured more breeze. Invitations to garden parties often came with whispered boasts about the pavilion's refreshing airflow or the delicate perfumes carried on the wind. In a land where comfort was hard-won, these luxuries mattered deeply. You can almost hear the polite conversations and strategic glances exchanged beneath the canopy of cypress trees as guests subtly sized up each other's gardens and status. The breeze was a silent participant in these social dances, carrying whispers and laughter, cooling tempers and smoothing negotiations. But the connection between breeze and status wasn't limited to the elite. Persian poets and philosophers celebrated the garden breeze as a symbol of purity, grace, and spiritual refinement. The gentle movement of air was seen as a divine breath, a gift from the heavens that cleansed both body and soul. To be surrounded by cool, fragrant breezes was to live in harmony with the cosmos itself. This belief infused Persian culture with a deep respect for nature's subtle forces. Wind was not just air in motion. It was a messenger, a carrier of blessings and spiritual energy. Persian literature is filled with references to breezes as symbols of love, hope, and renewal. To sit in a garden where the breeze whispered through the leaves was to participate in a sacred ritual of connection between the earthly and the divine. There's a quirky historical tidbit that brings this symbolic relationship to life. Some Persian nobles were known to have trained servants specifically to monitor the wind's direction and intensity throughout the day, adjusting garden features like movable screens or planting seasonal flowers to enhance the experience. It's an image both amusing and telling. Garden breezes were so important they inspired dedicated staff to orchestrate nature itself. Historians still debate how widespread such practices were, or if they were reserved for the grandest estates. Regardless, the idea reveals how central airflow was to Persian life and culture. It was a marker of sophistication and a tool of subtle influence. As you imagine yourself wandering these gardens, feeling the breeze softly caress your skin, you become aware of the layered meanings behind every gust. The wind cools and comforts, yes, but it also communicates, connects, and elevates. This sense of breeze as status and symbol echoes through Persian art as well. Miniature paintings often depict elegant figures reclining in lush gardens, their robes flowing gently in the wind, surrounded by delicate blossoms and sparkling water features. The breeze in these images is more than background. It's a character in the scene, shaping the mood and amplifying the grace of the moment. You think about how this cultural reverence for breeze compares with today's world, where air conditioning and climate control have largely erased nature's subtle interventions. In Persian times, capturing a cool wind was a matter of life and luxury, an art form that blended science, beauty, and social grace. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, you carry with you this intricate tapestry of social power, poetic symbolism, and the simple, enduring joy of a cool breeze on a warm day. The Persian gardens teach that comfort and meaning can flow together, carried gently on the wind. You rest, lulled by the imagined rustle of leaves and the soft sigh of air weaving through centuries-old trees. And somewhere deep in time, the breeze continues its endless journey, connecting past and present, body and soul, nature and human heart. You drift gently back into the world of Persian gardens, where the delicate interplay of breeze and scent transforms the space into a living poem. This time you let yourself be carried by the words of Persian poets, whose verses praise not only the visual beauty of gardens, but the very essence of the breeze that dances through them. In these poems, the wind is a messenger of love, a bearer of secrets, and a whisper of eternity. Imagine sitting beneath a blooming rose bush, the garden's perfect geometry folding around you like a protective embrace. A soft breeze stirs the petals, carrying their sweet fragrance across your skin and into your soul. Persian poetry often uses this scent-laden breeze as a metaphor for fleeting beauty and divine grace, reminding us how ephemeral yet precious these moments are. Hafez, one of Persia's greatest poets, wrote frequently about gardens and wind, his verses painting vivid images of breezes that bring the rose's perfume from faraway lands and sing soft songs only the heart can hear. The garden in his poetry is not merely a physical place, but a spiritual sanctuary where the soul finds peace. The breeze carries prayers and hopes, touching everything lightly, like a lover's sigh. As you listen to these poetic whispers, you realize that the Persian garden's true magic lies in its multisensory experience. Sight, sound, touch, and scent merge seamlessly, each enhanced by the movement of air. The breeze becomes the thread weaving all these senses together, making the garden a place where nature and art converse. Fragrance in particular was deeply important to Persian poets. Roses, jasmine, and night-blooming tuberose were more than flowers. They were symbols of divine beauty and ephemeral joy. When the breeze carried their scent, it was as if the garden spoke directly to the soul, reminding all who listened of life's sweetness and fragility. But this poetic celebration of breezes was not limited to high culture. In everyday life, the movement of air-shaped rhythms of activity and rest. Morning breezes woke the city softly, while evening winds cooled weary bodies and invited peaceful slumber. The gentle sighing of leaves and water, carried by the wind, was woven into daily experience, a natural soundtrack to life. You think about how the Persian poet's reverence for breeze contrasts with modern urban life, where air is often stagnant, polluted, and disconnected from nature's rhythms. The poetry reminds us to pause, breathe, and listen, to find meaning in the subtle movements around us. There's a charming story from Persian folklore about a wandering poet who followed the breeze through various gardens, each one offering a new verse, a new scent, a new lesson in love and loss. The breeze was his muse, inspiring songs and stories that outlived him by centuries. This tale captures the timeless relationship between wind, garden, and creativity, a relationship still alive in the gentle rustle of leaves tonight. Historians still debate how literally to take these poetic references. Were they merely metaphorical? Or did Persian gardeners intentionally design spaces to enhance scent and breeze for spiritual experience? Perhaps it was both. The gardens were scientific marvels of airflow and microclimate, but also sacred spaces designed to nurture the heart and imagination. As you imagine yourself reclining in a shaded pavilion, feeling the breeze brush your face and carry the sweet scent of flowers, you understand the profound connection between poetry and place. The garden becomes a living poem, the breeze its voice, and you, a quiet listener drawn into the timeless song. Tonight, as sleep beckons, you carry with you the poetry of breeze and garden, an invitation to find beauty and calm, not just in grand spaces, but in every breath of air, every whisper of wind. The Persian poets remind you that life, like a garden breeze, is delicate, fleeting, and full of hidden meaning waiting to be discovered. You close your eyes and let the breeze's gentle poetry lull you into rest, the soft sigh of ancient gardens echoing softly in your dreams. You drift now into a more melancholic part of the Persian garden story, the lost gardens, vanished but never forgotten, their breezes still whispered about in legend and memory. Imagine wandering through a garden that no longer exists, its fountains dry, paths overgrown, walls crumbling. Yet even in ruin, the story of its breezes remains vivid, carried forward by poets, historians, and the gentle wind itself. These lost gardens were once masterpieces of breeze-catching design. Historians debate exactly what caused their disappearance, war, neglect, climate change, or the slow march of urban sprawl. Some vanished beneath the dust of centuries. Others drowned in floods or were dismantled by successive rulers. But their essence lives on, haunting Persian culture like a soft, persistent sigh on the wind. You imagine the gardens as they once were, shimmering pools reflecting sunlight, fragrant groves rustling softly in the breeze, pavilions alive with laughter and music. These were places where the air was thick with scent and coolness, sanctuaries from harsh realities outside the walls. There's a bittersweet tale of one such garden, said to have belonged to a beloved queen. When her palace fell to ruin, the garden's breath was the last thing to leave, a final cool sigh that lingered long after stone and marble crumbled. Local legend tells of the breeze carrying her whispered prayers through the ruins, comforting those who wandered there, even centuries later. Some scholars argue that the loss of these gardens marked a turning point in Persian history, a fading of a certain harmony with nature and artistry. Others see it as a transformation, where the essence of garden breezes moved into new forms, influencing architecture and urban planning beyond Persia's borders. The mystery of these lost gardens still inspires debate. How did their airflow systems work in detail? What plants grew there? Were their breezes as sweet as the stories say? While no definitive answers exist, the longing to restore or reimagine them remains alive in cultural memory. You sense a gentle sadness, but also a hopeful resilience in these stories. The breeze, ever fleeting, refuses to be silenced. It whispers across time, linking past and present, ruin and renewal. Even where gardens fall, their breath lingers, promising that beauty and comfort can be rediscovered. Tonight, as you close your eyes, you imagine walking through those vanished gardens, feeling the cool breeze play softly through your hair. The lost gardens remind you that even in decay, there is grace, and that the simplest pleasures, like a gentle wind, endure beyond walls and time. In some regions, efforts have been made to revive or reconstruct these ancient gardens. Archaeologists and landscape historians have pieced together clues from manuscripts, paintings, and physical remains, attempting to breathe life back into these forgotten paradises. Though nothing can fully restore what was lost, these projects aim to capture the spirit, the carefully calculated breezes, the harmony of water and plant life, and the serene atmosphere that once defined these spaces. You imagine the painstaking work involved, mapping out ancient water channels, planting traditional trees and flowers, rebuilding pavilions designed to catch the wind just so. Each stone laid is a gesture of respect for the craftsmanship of the past and a hopeful promise for the future. Even modern Persian garden designers draw inspiration from these lost spaces, seeking to blend ancient wisdom with contemporary needs. Urban planners increasingly recognize the value of airflow and microclimate in city design, echoing principles first practiced in Persian gardens thousands of years ago. The gentle dance of breeze and shade remains a vital lesson, especially as cities grow hotter and denser. Walking through these reimagined spaces, you feel a connection to the gardeners and dreamers who came before. Their dedication to comfort, beauty, and harmony whispers through the leaves, a legacy carried softly on the breeze. The lost gardens teach us about impermanence and resilience. Though walls crumble and fountains dry, the essence, the breath of air, the scent of blossoms, the calm they inspire, can never be truly lost. It lives in stories, art, and memory, ready to be rediscovered by anyone who pauses to listen. Tonight, as you let your thoughts drift like leaves on the wind, you carry with you the gentle sorrow and enduring hope of these vanished gardens. Their breezes remind you that beauty and comfort, once crafted, can echo forever. Even in absence, you close your eyes, and the cool breeze seems to wrap around you like a soft shawl, a whispered promise that even loss carries the seed of renewal. The vanished gardens remain alive in the breath of the wind, forever inviting you to return, to remember, and to dream. Alma, your journey through the world of Persian gardens now leads you to their enduring legacy, how these ancient designs have shaped not only gardens, but entire cities, influencing urban planning and architecture far beyond Persia's borders. The art of harnessing breeze, water, and shade in perfect harmony didn't vanish with the lost gardens. It evolved, inspiring generations of builders and planners to create spaces where nature's breath could still be felt and cherished. Imagine walking through a bustling modern city where narrow alleys and open courtyards recall the layouts of ancient Persian gardens. You might find yourself drawn to the shadows cast by carefully placed trees or the gentle murmur of water flowing through a fountain. These elements are no accident. They echo principles honed millennia ago, a timeless conversation between human needs and natural forces. Persian garden design emphasized four fundamental elements: earth, water, air, and fire, balanced within a geometric layout known as the chaharbagh, or fourfold garden. This design wasn't merely symbolic, it was practical, creating airflow corridors, cooling microclimates, and sensory richness. Urban planners centuries later adopted similar principles, incorporating water features and green spaces to combat heat and improve living conditions. You think of the narrow, shaded streets of old Middle Eastern cities, where high walls and archways funnel cooling breezes through dense neighborhoods. These features bear the unmistakable fingerprints of Persian influence, refined over time to suit changing needs. Architects crafted wind towers, courtyards, and gardens as not just for beauty, but for comfort, a tradition stretching back to the earliest Persian gardens. Today, many architects and urban planners revisit these ancient lessons as climate change intensifies heat in urban centers worldwide. The principles of natural ventilation, evaporative cooling, and shade remain vital tools for sustainable design. The idea that architecture can work with nature rather than against it is a legacy passed down through centuries, rooted deeply in Persian garden wisdom. Even in the West, the influence is visible. The Renaissance gardens of Italy and France borrowed heavily from Persian concepts, adapting geometric layouts, water channels, and airflow techniques. These European interpretations became symbols of power and refinement, just as Persian gardens once were. The breeze-catching designs, elegant pavilions, and orchestrated sensory experiences reflect a shared human desire to create spaces of beauty and comfort. You imagine the delicate balancing act of these modern and historical gardens, how designers juggle practical needs and aesthetic goals, blending tradition and innovation. The breeze, once captured by carved stone channels and towering badgers, now moves through glass and steel courtyards and green rooftops. Yet its calming presence remains, a silent thread connecting past and present. There's a subtle irony here. In an age of air conditioning and climate control, many have forgotten the power of natural design. But as cities grow hotter and energy costs soar, the wisdom of Persian gardens is more relevant than ever. The principles of shading, water, and airflow offer sustainable alternatives that honor nature's rhythms rather than fight them. You pause to reflect on the sensory richness these gardens offer, how water's gentle murmur, leaves rustling, and breeze's soft touch create environments that soothe and inspire. It's a reminder that comfort is multidimensional, blending physical relief with emotional and spiritual nourishment. Historians still debate the exact pathways of influence, tracing how Persian garden ideas spread along trade routes and through cultural exchanges. But the consensus is clear: the legacy of these gardens is vast and enduring. They teach us how thoughtful design can shape not only landscapes but lives. Tonight, as you rest, you carry this legacy with you, the knowledge that ancient gardens are more than relics, they are living lessons. Their breezes whisper through modern cities, inviting us to reconnect with nature's gentle gifts and to design with care and intention. The breeze you feel tonight, whether carried through a simple window or an elaborate courtyard, is part of this ancient story. A reminder that even in a fast-moving world, the quiet art of catching the wind remains a timeless comfort. You close your eyes, the soft sigh of a breeze carrying you into rest, cradled by the echoes of gardens past and present, a breath of calm spanning centuries. As the journey nears its end, you find yourself strolling softly through the twilight of an ancient Persian garden, the sun sinking low and casting long golden shadows over marble paths and water's shimmering surface. The breeze, ever present, has slowed to a gentle whisper, carrying the scent of jasmine and rose, mingling with the cooling air. It feels like the garden itself is sighing, a final breath before nightfall. This is the time when the garden's magic seems most palpable, a moment suspended between day and night, wakefulness and sleep. The soft rustle of leaves blends with the distant trickle of fountains and the muted chirping of evening birds. It's a delicate symphony of sound and sensation, carried lightly on the breeze that has been your constant companion through this long journey. You walk slowly, savoring each detail, the cool touch of stone beneath your fingertips, the fading warmth of the sun on your skin, the way the air seems to hold its breath, just for a moment. This garden, like all the gardens before it, is more than a place. It is a state of mind, a sanctuary built of breeze and water, scent and shadow. Throughout your journey, you've seen how Persian gardens were crafted meticulously to capture nature's gentlest gifts, to bring relief from harsh climates and comfort to weary souls. You've wandered past shimmering canals, listened to the soft hum of wind towers, inhaled fragrances that seemed almost divine, and traced the subtle geometry that guided every breeze and every step. You've heard poets speak of the garden breeze as a messenger of love, a bearer of calm and a symbol of hope. Now in this quiet evening, those lessons gather softly around you. You feel a profound stillness settle in your bones, a peace woven from centuries of human care and natural wonder. The breeze brushes your cheek like a whispered lullaby, inviting you to rest, to let go. It's a gentle reminder that even in the complexity of life, simplicity, like the touch of a breeze, can bring the deepest comfort. You imagine the gardeners who tended these spaces, their hands shaping earth and water, their hearts tuned to the rhythms of wind and sun. Their work was not just horticulture, but a form of quiet kindness, a gift passed down through generations. Historians still debate many details about these gardens, how exactly their airflow systems worked, what specific plants filled their beds, and how much symbolism influenced their designs. But none dispute their enduring beauty and their ability to soothe both body and spirit. The garden's breeze, a constant presence, is itself a bridge between past and present, nature and culture, earth and skyline. As the evening deepens, stars begin to twinkle faintly overhead, and the garden fades into shadow. You find a comfortable spot beneath a gently swaying tree, the night air cool and soft. The last light of day lingers on the horizon, a warm glow fading slowly into darkness. You breathe in deeply, the scent of flowers and fresh earth mingling with the crisp night air. The breeze sighs softly, carrying distant whispers, perhaps the voices of those who walked here before you, their hopes and dreams folded into the garden's breath. Tonight, as sleep calls softly, you carry with you the quiet grace of these ancient spaces. You remember that comfort is often found in the simplest things, the touch of a breeze, the sound of water, the scent of a rose. These are gifts that endure beyond time and place. So, as your eyes close and your mind drifts gently toward rest, let the garden's breeze lull you into peaceful dreams. Feel yourself carried softly on its wings, a part of an endless story whispered across centuries, a breath of calm that will stay with you long after the night fades. The journey may end here, but the garden's gentle breath remains, a quiet promise of peace, comfort, and renewal, always just a breeze away.